Greetings, entertainment artists, both professional and aspiring alike. So I'm making my first video in about a year, which is crazy, but I had to come back to YouTube because I wanted to really just fill everybody in, because a lot of people have been wondering what I've been up to, but also to talk about the state of the job industry right now, but also because YouTube hit me up and they said you're going to lose your YouTube partnership. And although I don't really make money from YouTube, it took me a year of grinding to get it, so I'm not going to let go of that too easily, so I better make a few videos to get the viewing numbers up, keep my partnership program. So today I wanted to talk about the whole job situation, what it's like in 2025, and also just like I say, just talk you through what I've been up to. It's going to be informal. I don't have time. The reason why I haven't been making any videos is because I've been too busy working, and making a YouTube video takes a good while to do. It takes maybe a whole weekend if you do a proper one, and it's either a case of I do nothing or I do a sort of a quickly thrown together one. It'll be probably a long video, because most of mine are, because that gives me a chance to breathe and talk about things and get into stuff, and it means that I don't have to worry too much about tons of editing, even though there's usually a fair bit that goes into it anyway. So what have I been up to? So it's now early August 2025, and like I say, about a year since my last video. Since then I started work with EA on Battlefield. That was the end of last summer. I moved into this apartment last August, so it was just after I moved in that I started working for those guys, and it was a 6-month contract. And so that started to come to an end, and they didn't know whether they were going to renew it or not. So there was uncertainty there, and at the same time somebody from Atari contacted me to do some work on a Mortal Kombat IP. Nothing major, it was some sort of interactive retrospective of the Mortal Kombat franchise. So I did loads of background art for that, and by the time that came to an end, I got hit up by the company that I'm currently working for, R16 Interactive, and on their Tails Edge project. So I've been working on that for a few months. So basically since last, September-ish, I've been working non-stop, and going to be working with them for the foreseeable. What is interesting is I've been recently promoted to art director, focusing mainly on the environments, and there's another guy working on the characters. So it's been a pretty interesting time with having to have experience of being an art director for the first time, having only ever served under art directors, and that's a whole other story that maybe I'll do another video on at some point. So yeah, I've been really busy, so that's good. Last time we talked, there was a lot of doom and gloom, and I'll be honest, I was on the edge of giving up. And the reason why I felt compelled to make this video is because a lot of people saw me as the sort of canary in the coal mine, because I've got industry experience, been in it for a few years, and if I can't get work, then how does that measure for other people? And so I guess the good news, obviously selfishly the good news is, but maybe optimistically, in a broader sense, or was I just lucky? I don't know. What I will say is, so 2022 and 2023 and 2024, maybe halfway into 22, and that sort of time period when everything crashed, up until that point, during say 21, 22, I was getting hit up every couple of weeks or so with little job offers here and there. So since the crash, besides this one job offer that came up, I haven't been contacted at all. So the landscape has changed. What I wanted to talk about was what things are like now. It's a whole different world, and I can't necessarily say, here's how you get a job in 2025. I mean, I could say, here's how you improve your chances, but it's a different world. and it's something that me and other art colleagues talk about. So I'll get into the guys that I met in Battlefield, who are really cool guys. So let me introduce you to their portfolios just so that you know who they are. So we have a guy called Mattia Lau. Okay. So this is Mattia Lau, and he was a junior concept artist on Battlefield, I believe. And then I don't know whether he moved to just sort of standard concept artist. Then we have Patrick. Now then, I've been trying to practice his saying your surname, Patrick. Olkaj-Vix, something like that. Vich, sorry, Olkaj-Vich. So these are my two colleagues that I worked with for EA Criterion. And so check out their portfolios. And so what I wanted to talk about with those guys is how much I learned from them in terms of like their professional capacity. So Matt came pretty much straight out of uni and got a job at EA. Myself, I didn't go to uni, but it took me like 10 years of grind to then get into EA. So we came at it from two completely different angles. And then Patrick, he was doing a lot of, like myself, grinding. I remember him talking about how much he just struggled getting clients and just grinding and like having, financial difficulties in the beginning and stuff like that. But what I learned from those guys is how much they were plugged into the industry, like both kind of almost equally. The weird thing is, like, Matt went from uni to having a job, so he didn't really have to do much he did the networking to get into the job, but still he's plugged in, knows lots of people. The thing that I wanted to emphasize is, and I didn't know this much, I didn't know anywhere near as much as they did about just what's going on. So we would have regular, every day, sometimes every other day, we'd just be chatting on Discord while we're working. And it really just impressed me how much, like, for example, you could look up a concept artist on ArtStation and go, oh yeah, that guy's really cool. And if somebody's cool, you're bound to sort of recognize at least one of their pieces, maybe two. But you could mention that artist. Maybe they wouldn't necessarily know straight away by name. You go, this artist, they go, oh, that guy, he works at this studio, and before that he worked at this studio, and he was roughly on this salary. They would know everything. You could mention a production, like something on Netflix. Oh yeah, that Netflix, they're working with this studio, and such and such an artist is working on that project. And there's almost nothing that you could say where they wouldn't have some knowledge of it. And every time, even like if I said to Patrick, oh, I saw this job and I'm talking to this guy about this job, he'd say, oh yeah, I'm talking to the same guy about the job. And he wouldn't be lying, because he would say the name of the guy without me having to say the name of the guy. So it was crazy. So what we used to always talk about was just what you have to do these days. You can't just apply for a job, even if you're like at a high level. The job situation is weird, and it has been for a few years, whereby, and I've heard this so many times, you apply for a job, maybe you get far, maybe they say, yeah, we like your work, maybe they give you an interview, maybe they give you a second interview, then they start going quiet, they never tell you that you don't have the job. And then, in fact, I even had experiences of that back in 2016-ish, 2017 with Telltale Games, the ones who did The Walking Dead. Even back then they strung me along, so maybe it's just an industry standard thing, but it's ramped up a lot lately. So you can get into weird situations like never-ending, endless, just a job application that just never seems to go anywhere, and then you get ghosted. That's now the standard. It's weird, can't explain it, can't figure out why. So plus when you apply for jobs, it gets swamped. We can talk about later an example of the sort of garbage people's quality that are applying for those jobs. That's one thing that I have heard, is that when you see that a job gets posted and then you see that 200 people have applied for it and you think, oh man, am I better than 200 people? Well, if see, I got to caveat this. Part of me wants to say, yeah, you probably are, but this is the problem. There's people watching this video now who are just deluded, probably. So that's the thing. Like 90. In fact, I've heard, because we talked about numbers, and it's guesswork to some degree, but I said, about 90% of those seem to be, from what I've heard, complete garbage, and I've heard other people say 95 to 98 are garbage. So that's weird. We have these jobs that are now, because loads of people are unemployed, they're getting swamped, but they're getting swamped with bad applicants, which means that maybe the good artists are getting lost. So that's weird. However, applying is not the way. Waiting around is not the way. So the only way that people are getting hired now is, I guess, two broad reasons. They're really good and they know people, and it's as simple as that. It's become an industry where it's become like this insular industry where you just know people, and Patrick is really good at sort of knowing people, which is amazing. Like, for example, if a job comes up, somebody might say, hey Patrick, there's a job going, and he won't apply for it. He'll just somehow get the guy's email and go, hey, just wanted to let you know that I'm available, here's my work. And the person will go, yeah, fine, you're hired. So that's pretty crazy. But I will say, when I've talked to him, I've been like, man, you're just really lucky. And it wasn't always that way. In the beginning, he would have regarded himself as being quite unlucky. Myself also in that category. So times are really weird. We've had about 40,000 layoffs in the past couple of years, and it's not even stopping. You know, some of the layoffs keep going. At the same time, I looked up some figures on ChatGPT recently, and I was like, when I see videos of, like Asmongold or other people saying, here's some cool games that are coming up in 2025, 26. And it's just game after game after game after game, and you think, wow, there's so many, and you find out, and then you hear about the stats on Steam, how many games are released on Steam. There's just thousands upon thousands of games every year. So there's a lot of games out there. There's a lot of existing jobs, but there's a lot of applicants. And I think I worked it out at something like I can't remember if it's 2-to-1 or 4-to-1. I'm sure it's more of the 4-to-1. Like for the existing jobs out there are about 4 times as many people unemployed, which is not terrible odds. Now those aren't job applications, job vacancies. Those are existing jobs. You have to maybe do a bit of mental gymnastics there, but you really can't afford to be anywhere near. So you've got, like, if you imagine 25% chunks, you need to be at least in the top 25% to get work of quality, ideally higher up in that sort of rank. And for me, it took me many years to get close up to the bottom end of that sort of 75% level. And by the time I got there, I was still thinking in my head that I was in the 50% level, and I kind of stuck in that 50, maybe 60, comparing myself to other people. But eventually people seem to like my work more than I do, so I'm in this confused state where I see myself as lower than perhaps other people see me. So it's hard to gauge exactly where you are, but it's definitely healthier to see yourself lower than higher, and we can talk about that in a minute. So the battle is twofold. One is that you have to just understand how good you have to be. The battle for that is one thing. There is no junior level. There is no junior level. I see artists all the time that think that they can get into the industry because they've been, doing things for 2 or 3 years, and they're not even at junior level. And junior level jobs don't really exist. So what the hell are you doing? You've got to be better than that. You have to keep getting better and better and better, and it's like an elite level thing. So many, and I can't emphasize this enough, so many people just think that they can do the minimum and then apply for a job. Like, they think that it's like, okay, I learn plumbing, I learn the plumbing skills, and then I just advertise myself as a plumber and get work. It's not like that at all. There is no, it was only during COVID that you could get that level. And I guess I owe COVID to me getting in the industry, otherwise maybe I wouldn't have made it, because there was just a lot more wiggle room for people who weren't quite there yet. And then I got in, and then now I'm at like a senior level. So yeah, you've got to be really good, and you can't afford to be fucking around with just mediocre work. It has to be really good, top level as you can get, and really push the bar. And I found the art journey is a battle of laziness, and especially in the West, I think people in Eastern Europe and Southeast Asia and that kind of part of the world, they have a much tougher mindset, which is why you see so many good artists from China, from Russia and Eastern Europe. They just have a different mindset. They don't sort of do their work and go, yay, I'm brilliant, aren't I? They do their work, somebody tells them it's shit from somewhere, and they get this really sort of like punishing, grueling way to keep their egos in check. They're very humble. And in the West, we just seem to be boastful, like, look what I've done. And they post it online and they wait for everyone to go, oh, this is fantastic. And it's so detrimental. Somehow I avoided that, and I've always been humble, and I've always wanted to have somebody better than me show me what to do. In fact, it's an insecurity which actually has been to my benefit, because I generally am a little bit like, oh, I suck. So if you are one of those people saying, oh, I think my work sucks, that can actually be your biggest strength. So I'm going to give some examples now. So here's a difficult situation that I'm in, where I came across somebody, and this is the example of the kind of mindset that I want you guys to understand. Unfortunately, some of you will be watching this video with that mindset. I assume that everybody watching these videos and who follows my stuff online is already very sensible, but it's not the case. So I recently had to look for some high-level 3D character artists. Finding, especially in the style of game that we're working on, slightly stylized, very hard to find. Realism is a lot more straightforward to do. You just mimic exactly one for one what you're trying to achieve. But when something is a little bit stylized, even just 10%, and you want to really exaggerate the fingers of a hand and the shoes and facial expressions and proportions, it requires a little bit of a different skill set. And I've been in this predicament once before in a different role, trying to find a 3D artist who can do that. It's very hard. And so I was trying to look for some, and I sent out some emails. And this is the other thing that's weird. Me and our character art director sent out messages, and people didn't reply. And they were looking for work on LinkedIn. And I was baffled that, like, you wouldn't keep on top of that. At least reply and say I'm not available or something. So I made a little ranty post on Facebook about in this day and age where people need work, why aren't they keeping on top of their emails or messaging, or like it was actually through ArtStation I got in touch with somebody, and we know that ArtStation sends you a DM, So somebody saw that post and they got in touch, on Facebook, and they said, I saw your message I just wanted to put myself forward to let you know that I'm available for work. Now, I'm kind of already going to be a little bit skeptical that person's going to be good enough, because like I say, it's already really hard to find somebody of that level, so I thought well, I'll just look on their Facebook profile. Bear in mind, this is for a 3D character artist. Okay, so when I looked at their profile, this was the first thing that I saw, and I saw it in like this big, but you know art when you see it. And like I say, I wasn't going to name and shame. I was going to talk about them in an abstract sense, but then they started to piss me off, and I'll explain why. So this has to be, people have to know this, they're up against this kind of person out there. There's thousands of people who are hard-working artists out of work. They can't find jobs. They really deserve jobs, and they've worked really hard to get where they are. And there are people out there who are trying to just sneak their way in, and it makes my blood boil. So I could instantly tell that what I was looking at when I saw this artwork. And so I say, cheers. Unfortunately, we need someone senior. Thanks for reaching out, though. Which in itself could be a burn if you were already good and somebody says, hey, sorry, we're looking for somebody more senior. But if you're a junior and you have somebody say, sorry, we're looking for someone more senior, at that point, it's very sensible to expect that they would be like, oh, sorry, didn't realize you're looking for a senior. I'm definitely not a senior. So they reply, I actually am senior in the 3D industry with 10 years of experience and a strong background in character work. I'm thinking, why would you have a high school level anime drawing as your Facebook profile picture? Plus their banner had their banner actually had furry art in it. And I said to them, I'm afraid I'll have to disagree there. This is the level that we're looking at. And I sent him a picture of this AAA, solid, true artist, not just somebody who makes 3D characters, a true somebody who's like a master at what they do. That's the level that we're kind of wanting to employ here. And he says, Andy, this level of detailing and texturing is possible. I've worked in games, and providing this much detail is within my skill level. And I'm trying to keep 5% benefit of the doubt here, right? Because you never know, somebody could be, somehow they could be all right, and you just haven't seen their work yet or something. And I tried to Google their name, and it came up with a portfolio that was similar in style to the one that you just saw, like high school level, anime, furry, that kind of thing. No 3D stuff at all. At this stage, I'm still not thinking of naming and shaming. So right now I'm keeping my cool. So they then sent images, and I'll show you what they look like. So they sent this. Look at this thing here, like what's going on here. What is this? We're going to bear in mind, 3D character artist. Where's the 3D? What's going on? Maybe, and I thought, okay, maybe was this done in ZBrush? Because they're saying they're senior, maybe it's so good that it looks like a photo. I don't know what that is, but it looks like AI to me. But it might not be, but it's not 3D. Then I saw this, and I'm thinking, oh, the AI alarm bells are starting to go off. And I'm like, that, if that's ZBrush, that is really good, But that's not ZBrush. Are we seeing anything obviously AI here? Like maybe not, but it's like the detail's really good. Could be photograph. I'm looking for weird fingers, but look at that. Look at this. So I'm looking at this on my phone though, so I'm seeing it somewhat reduced. Now this one. So then there's a couple more, but I was looking at this again. Oh, could it be ZBrush? Is there somewhere? I'm trying so hard to give them the benefit of the doubt. So then I say, can you show me some raw ZBrush sculpts? This is all Photoshop. I know that at the very least this is Photoshop. And I say, I'll give you $100 if you give me a video turning around a model in ZBrush. And you know what they said? No, actually, no. So I said, can you show me some raw ZBrush sculpts? And they sent this. Right, can you see what's going on here? Can you see what this is? Now, this is supposed to be this, imagining that it's been sculpted, which means that you should basically get this exact thing but in grey, and maybe a front, side, back, whatever. But look at the difference. You've got different sleeves, feet. Oops, that was the other thing that they sent, and the other thing. You know, hat's different. It has, like I say, it has to be identical, because you can't have a slightly different hat when you've sculpted it in ZBrush and it's fixed and permanent. Slightly different ruffles here. This is different. The whole thing's different, right? So this is clearly AI, which is a real insult, because they also then will have whipped this up then and there, you know. So I said, I'll give you $100 if you can show me the video of that turning around. And they said, I don't have the file with me right now. I created it a long time ago. Also, I'm not giving a test. I'm just showing you my work. Andy, I would never waste your time on something I couldn't do. I wouldn't have reached out if I weren't capable of handling the work. I said, this is where I was getting annoyed now, because this is pure bullshit. I said, number one, you can't draw. Number two, you don't have a 3D character portfolio. Number three, you use AI. And number four, you don't realize that a 3D character artist needs to make a game-ready asset and not just a photoshopped image. So they said, yeah, I can draw. I use my own sketches as the starting point for my 3D characters. I do have a 3D character portfolio, and I'm building it up with full pipeline work. Here's my recent animation project. Everything you see was model textures and rendered by me. To which they sent a bunch of videos, and here is what they sent. Okay, so yeah, that is basically the situation that we're looking at in 2025. There are lots of people out there who are blowing smoke. They just don't know what the hell they're doing. They're applying for any job that they can. I guarantee if I put an official job out there, 3D senior level, top level, AAA senior character artist needed, really emphasized how good they had to be, you would get people who are pre-junior applying for that role. So there's a lot of garbage out there. So that's good news and bad news. The bad news is that many people watching this are probably, well, I don't know how many though, I'd like to know, but some of you watching this will be that level of garbage, and that you won't even know it. And hopefully not too many, but the good news is that if you have a sensible brain and you think that you could do, that you think that you're on the path to being good, and you've got a good idea of how much you suck right now, healthy idea of what's working and what isn't, what artist is good. I always talk about a scale of 1 to 10. If you can tell that an artist is a 5 or a 6 or a 7, and sometimes an artist will produce 9 level work but then also produce 7 level work, but you know, in general, what a piece of work is that is producing those 8s and 9s, and where you are and what it is that is missing in your work to get you to closer to that level. Some people may never get there because there's a certain threshold that we reach, and then we get a bit lazy. In order to get to those levels, it requires stripping off pieces of your psyche and your ego and just peeling it back and facing your weaknesses. It could be anatomy, it could be clothing, foliage, lighting, composition. It could be anything like that you just go, oh, I can't deal with that, I'm just going to cheat it. We all do that, and we live in a world where there's so many opportunities to cheat in 3D and all kinds of stuff like that. So the only way that we can get to those really high levels is to face those ugly things, and they're very ugly because it's eventually you start to think, oh, do I suck? Am I just not good enough? And that's a deep thing to have to go through, which is why they say that in mentorships you spend a lot of time counseling people. So that's pretty much most of what I wanted to say, really. The jobs industry it's going to be like this for a while. The entertainment industry in general, film, television, it's all collapsing. Half of that is due to people's attention span changing. People just don't go to the cinema anymore. People don't really want to sit through a whole movie. I like watching movies. My wife doesn't, and we don't have much time. So more and more our content is sitting in front of the TV watching YouTube versus a film. And I think the landscape is changing. AI is playing a role. It will play more of a role, but it's not necessarily flipping the tables over yet. It's not necessarily creating absolute havoc, because there's still a lot that we can do and that we need to do before AI. Like I say, AI, that's that guy that I just showed you. That's what AI is doing right now. It couldn't produce a full 3D character with changes and tweaks and tweaks and tweaks and tweaks, which is what our job is as a concept artist. So I think the landscape is changing. Economies are changing. Everyone's getting poorer, so there's less disposable income for going to see a movie or renting a movie. So the landscape is kind of weird at the moment. So I don't know how it's going to recover. But the other way that things are going is more indie. So the way that you have to start thinking about things is, can I get into the indie space somehow? Can I create my own project? Could I align with a lower budget company for less of a price? But you still need to be good, because you'll be wasting people's time if you're just not good enough. You're going to be wasting a company's time. We've seen that. I've seen that a lot, where you may as well just pay the money for the good artists, because they will save you time in the long run. So the indie space is growing and growing, and it's up to you to figure out how you might want to fit in there. If you want to start your own project, team up with some other people, make your own game, that kind of thing. Unfortunately, that means basically becoming an art entrepreneur, but the rewards could be pretty big. But the space is there because the AAA industry is just dying in the West. They just don't know how to make good games anymore. They keep failing and failing and failing, and it's just crumbling around everywhere. So there is space for independent stuff. People need it, and creative thinkers, people who can take things forward into the new world, into the new space of maybe doing shorts. Maybe shorts is the way for everything from now on, rather than feature length. So anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say on the subject. So yeah, I don't know. See if I'll try and get any more of these videos done if I have time, and see how things go in the future. Hope you all have some luck. Let me know in the comments what your experience is of the situation in the industry right now, and whether you think it's improving, or whether it's staying the same, or whether it's getting worse. Okay, thanks for watching. Cheers.